resolution be it resolved, fairy tales are relevant to modern society must stand. Now, before I move on to my speech, I will do my rebuttals. Now, the opposition side mentioned that fables were too unrealistic because we define fairy tales as fables. The problem is that fables may have magical creatures or something like that, but what it's really about is teaching about a lesson. The lesson is written, and it gives us wisdom. Now, what the first opposition did not know was that Cinderella and Snow White are not fables, for they do not teach any lessons, but they are merely just a fairy tale about with magic creatures. He also mentioned that because they were written so long ago and society has developed, that fairy tales or fables do not matter. Well, the problem is, because these stories are still the same, our society can still learn from these fables. Now onto my speech. Now, fables. Now I'll talk about how fables have meanings and that they give us wisdom. Now, fables, they have meaning. They teach us about life, and they teach us about life. In fact, those lessons are written in the story itself. They have meaning. For example, there was a story called Country Mouse and City Mouse. And the meaning of the story was that because the country mouse was invited to the city and thought it was dangerous, the meaning was that it's better to live a calmer life rather than a dangerous one. Fables have meaning. Fables give us wisdom. They teach us life lessons, such as, just as I mentioned right now. Fables talk about problems in a story, like as my partner had said, the tortoise and the hare were the slow and steady win the race, while the hare thought he could win, but he did not because he was bragging. But the fables give us knowledge and wisdom, which is important to modern society, and is in fact something that modern society can learn from. They teach us about how, for the reasons we have presented to you today, we believe that the resolution here resolved fairy tales are relevant to modern society.
Thank you. I would now call upon the second negative speaker to cross-examine the second affirmative speaker for time not to exceed 3 minutes. You may begin when you're ready.
Can I just confirm that you said fables are stories which teach us life lessons?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. To start off, can I ask you this question? Do you believe in sexism?
Yes, I do.
You do believe in sexism?
You mean as
Sexism?
in like going
People who
against?
discriminate between female and males.
Yes. I do.
Do you support them?
But no, I do not support that.
Okay. So, are you aware of the fact that Are you aware that, as you have mentioned, that fables are stories which teach us lessons, that fairy tales count as part of fables too, because they teach us lessons as well.
But they're not written.
Wait, how could you say that?
They're not written.
You're saying that fairy tales aren't written?
No. I'm saying that the lesson is not written. Like in a fable, the lesson would be written, like, if it was like the slow and steady win the race, that was actually written inside the story. Unlike a fairy tale where it's just about, it tells about.
Okay. But still the fairy tales do teach us lessons?
No.
Okay. Well, are you aware that the fairy tales do teach us a lesson in how sexist the world should be? A false lesson?
I don't believe that.
Well, okay. Well, the sign negative will tell you about it later. Well, saying in your opinion, if these tales, like in our opinion, if the fairy tales are about sexism, are you saying, and you believe that the fairy tales are relevant to modern society, so are you saying that life is about sexism?
Well, if I'm not sure if fables are really related to sexism, but wait, could you rephrase that?
So, in our concern, if these tales were about sexism, are you saying that life is about sexism because fables and fairy tales teach us life lessons?
Well, fables don't teach about sexism, first of all, and I don't think there are any we're talking about fables right now, and I don't think there are any fables really related to sexism, so I don't think life is about sexism.
But didn't you just say that earlier on that fables are stories which teach us life, lessons?
Yes, but none of the lessons are about sexism.
But aren't you aware that fairy tales teach us lessons as well and is considered as a part of fables, considering your need?
Well, I'm not sure if there are any sexist fairy tales, but
No, but are you aware that fairy tales are a part of fables?
I don't think so.
Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, and fellow debaters. The resolution before us today stands. Be resolved that fairy tales are relevant in modern society. First of all, as a negative side, I would like to confirm that fairy tales are a part of fables, since they themselves have said that fables are stories which teach us lessons. We agree to the person saying that fables are stories which teach us lessons, just lessons. They did not say in the response to my question that the lesson should be written or should not be written. So the negative side believes that fairy tales are a part of fables because they are stories which lessons are evident in them. So first I would like to go into my rebuttal. First of all, they said that fairy tales are related to life and built around our society of our society, and that it teaches about life to us. However, if these tales are about sexism, as I will later explain in my speech, they are saying that life is about sexist and about sexism. And as well, they said that the life lessons of these tales and fables are beneficial for us. However, we of the negative side believe that that society can learn from these lessons, which are bad lessons. And now on to my constructive speech. My partner has talked about how fairy tales are unrealistic to modern society, and I will talk about how they are sexist and how it gives us misleading info to believing us that this world is a fake utopia. So first of all, Rapunzel and Snow White. The lady is trapped in a tower. She just stares dumbly outside the window and just waits for the knight in shining armor to come and rescue her. He just stays there and stays there and stays there, just waiting and hoping for that knight to come. How sexist is that? This story tells us that the lady has no right and no freedom at all. Just the men, and the men. We can see for sure that the writers of these stories are men. However, in society today, there are major changes in this world going on right now, compared to the life before hundreds of years ago. We can see that women are working and are career women, while men are starting to take care of household chores such as taking care of the baby. This shows completely how fairy tales are opposite of society and are never relevant to society at all. And on to my on to my second reason. Fairy tales creates a false image of utopia. Happily ever after, they lived happily ever after. It is the most common statement in fairy tales and fables. Fairy tales presents to you that everything will work out without the person working hard and putting actual effort into their lives. It just works out because of a prince in shining armor, or a beast, as they say. In society, we know for sure that we all face problems and we need to put hard work and effort into our lives to make them successful. For example, Michael Jordan. He is a very successful basketball player and almost everyone in this world knows him. However, he met a huge wall blocking his dream and goal in life in high school. He got kicked out of his basketball team. What did he do? Did he just stand there, relax, sit back, and just watch his life go on and just hope for his life to be successful? No. He started practicing every day and thought about basketball every single moment of his life. This hard work and effort prepared himself and his life to become successful. This shows us that in modern society, we have to work hard and put actual effort into it, unlike fairy tales and fables just shows us. In fact, fairy tales are not at all relevant in modern society and teaches us the opposite lesson of life. So, for reasons we of side opposition has presented to you today, that fairy tales are sexist, unrealistic, and creates a false image of utopia that will never happen in real life. We believe that this resolution must and most definitely will fall, and that fairy tales are not at all relevant to modern society. Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite the first affirmative speaker to cross-examine the second opposition speaker for a time not to exceed 3 minutes.
So just to make sure, you mentioned in your speech that there are some sexist fables, right?
Yes.
Are you aware that there is nothing as such a thing as an actual sexist fable?
I'm sorry, I missed out this question. I said that there are sexist stories and fairy tales, and I have
Yes, but
confirmed
are
that-
those fables?
I have confirmed that I have asked your side that are fable stories which teach us lessons, and your partner has said yes. He agreed to
Yeah,
agree
fables do teach us lessons, but they do have to be written down. That is the proper definition of a fable. It has to be written down, and it has to be based on a fable. That is just the ordinary definition of a fable.
However, when I asked your team this question, they just said yes. Just yes.
No, we said that there is a life lesson. We
However,
never
I
said
confirmed that I was confirming, and he did not provide information that it had to be written down.
Actually, my honorable partner told side government actually that it has to be written down.
Well, then, shouldn't he have provided info to, again, to, like, then shouldn't your side have already,
Okay,
always,
so let's move on to the next point. Utopia, right?
yes,
Mentioned utopia.
that creates a fake image of
Yes,
utopia.
but utopia, are you aware that utopia is not existing in fables? Fables do not provide the utopia. Fables are not supporting utopia. They never do. Are you aware of that?
Are you aware, but we, with the negative side, believes that there's a most common statement in fables that happily ever after. As in your example, you
That
said
it,
the hare and the tortoise.
It's not happily ever after. There is no happily ever after. This is utopia we're talking about.
Yes, but that, as I explained in my speech, the statement happily ever after supports our reason.
Yes, but happily ever after does not mention itself in the fable tourism period. In any fable, it never mentions that. It only mentions that in fairy tales, in fairy tales such as Cinderella, Rapunzel, and those other things.
But as I explained in my speech, that we believe that we have provided enough reason that fairy tales are a part of fables.
But are the lessons written down, which is the biggest priority of the fable?
It is written down because in the story, the readers can tell and think.
But are they literally written down?
Yes, they're written down between the words.
I mean, are they literally? I mean, like literal.
Yes, in some stories they are.
Oh, well, then that one is a fable.
Yes, as I said.
Rapunzel, it states itself that you should wait for a knight to come and save you.
Yes, that's why, as I explained, that these stories are sexist.
Thank you. I would now call upon the first opposition